spice it up a bit.
All right. I think we are good to go, guys.
Good evening and welcome to CanHammer, your stop for Age of Sigmar from the Great White North. Today's show is episode 158, and it's going to be an Age of Sigmar podcast that we're going to talk all about the new points changes in the new General Handbook that's coming next week. As usual, I'm your host, Chris, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Mr.
Darren. Hello.
He's looking extra lovely this evening.
Let's go Raptors. Oh, I forgot to wear my Raptors hat.
No, I think everybody in the entire world has seen enough Raptors posts from you. They don't need a hat in the live cast. And we have a special guest joining us. We have...
Bonsoir.
Welcome. So it's your first time on the podcast, so I guess we'll give a little blurb so that people know who they're talking to or who they're listening to, more like. Except for if you're following us in the chat, they are talking. So, Francois, how'd you get in the hobby?
Well, I got into the hobby in like 1994, I think. Back when the fantasy battle box came with these cardboard cutouts for like a prince on Griffin. It was like goblins and elves. And I played for about a decade after that and stopped when I moved to the States. But when I moved to Ottawa, a couple of years ago, well, actually more than a couple now, like 6 years ago, I got back into it. At first just to paint, but then, you know, it's snowballed out, just painting, started playing lots and lots. And then I met Darren, and Darren roped me into coming into his basement to be on that. Because we have the same schedule, apparently, so I'm always down there playing. And that's now I play as much as I possibly can, tournaments and all that good stuff.
Right on. So by the same schedule, you also do nothing all day, right?
See, I do actually have a lot of free time in the daytime, so we do CanHammer whenever we can. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a prof at the University of Ottawa, so if I'm not physically teaching or in office hours, I can always arrange my schedule to get some gaming time.
Oh, right on. So, what aspect of the hobby is the most interesting to you? Are you a gamer first, painter first?
I used to be a painter first, but now that's switching. Now I find myself painting to play more than just playing with painted models, you know? Mm-hmm. So I've definitely kind of switched the way that I approach the painting a lot. Now I put more emphasis on speed over showpieces, right? But I enjoy all aspects of the hobby. I'm not a huge fan of like diving deep into the lore, so maybe less that side of it, but definitely the painting and the playing, yeah.
Yeah, that's the funny switch that a lot of players make, because they start off, they're like, I got to paint this army amazing, and then you're like chasing that meta, and you're like, and you just can't spend, a year painting an army because it won't be valid in a year, right?
Well, I try real hard to not play with unpainted models, not put them on the table until they're painted, so that's motivation to crank them out really quickly.
That's cool. Have you played in any tournaments or?
Yeah, I did a little YouTube recap of the CTC for CanHammer. When was it? Last month, 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed that one. I did well. It was 40K, not Sigmar. But for this year's CCBB, I'm thinking of doing Sigmar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wait to see what the points update does to my Skaven, and then I'm going to decide if I'm doing Sigmar. But I'm leaning that way, yeah.
Well, I'm hoping Skaven like tripling points. Everything.
We can talk specifically about Skaven in a minute, but I think there's some areas for increases. Yes.
Yeah. That's always good. Like, don't buy an army right now. Wait for the points to come out, and then buy the army.
I have Skaven that are like back from Fantasy Battle days. They've been sitting in a cupboard. I've been painting them for years now, and they finally got an update. So I didn't jump into the bandwagon. I was already firmly on it.
That's what they all say.
Yeah. Shout out to McCarrick on watching us on YouTube, and Sentel Entorn saying poor Skaven. He's feeling sorry for you, Francois. But so people watching,
this is the tier.
People watching live stream, we are chatting on all three platforms now. So if you care to chime in on the chat, we'll be able to see it.
Right, if I can't play my Skaven, I can always jump back to my Iron Jaws. Right, they're going to be at Powerhouse now.
Apparently.
Okay, so for AOS, you play Iron Jaws and Skaven. Obviously, Skaven's the primary.
Yes, yeah. I have 3 Sigmar armies, Gloomspite, Skaven. Well, actually, I used to have like a giant Hork and Goblin hordes back from Fantasy days, so I repurposed them into a Gloomspite army and Iron Jaws. And 40K, I have Imperial Knights, Imperial Guard, Craft World Eldar, and Tyranids.
What's your favorite 40K, or what's your favorite army in general?
My favorite army, looks wise and lore wise, I'm a big Greenskin fan. So the Goomspite Gits and the Ironjaws. To play, I really like Skaven in Sigmar. In 40k, I'm a big fan of the lore of the Tyranids and the Eldar. So those are my two that I have the most fun to play. But my competitive 40k army is Knights and Guard.
Mm.
Oh, triple knight.
Triple Knights. I do have a full Cadian army too. I can do 2,000 points just Guard.
You like is it 3 Crusaders?
3 Crusaders. That's what I took to the CTC. 3 Crusaders, 2 battalions of Guard, and Wyvern.
Oh, cool. That's a good list. Yeah.
Yeah, I did real well.
Yeah, it's a good list.
It's a good list.
It sounds like you know how to play it, so that's good.
Yep.
So I'll hand off to Darren to keep the lights on.
Yeah, shout out to our big sponsor, Red Dragon Comics, Cards, and Games. They are, oh man, the city's really been messing them around. They were supposed to be open 1st of June, but I don't actually know when they're going to get in there now. They've had big problems with getting access to their building. But eventually it will open, hopefully sometime before Capital City Bloodbath. All the events they had planned for this month have been moved to multi-zone. So we've still been having them, which is great. But shout out to them for being our main sponsor. And then we also have other sponsors. We've got David Tistaminis and Hoyt up at Thunder Games and Gifts, and helping us keep things going. So thank you very much. Thank you to all our patrons, and survived the changeover to our flat rate patron fee. So thank you very much for continued support from our patrons. We really do appreciate it.
Right on. So we'll also hand it over to Darren. He wants to plug his upcoming major.
Yeah, so before I do that, McCarrick wants to know if Tomb Kings are still a thing. So
how do you define them?
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get on to General's Handbook, because there were some unmet expectations in this General Handbook, and Tomb Kings are one of those. But yep, coming up, Capital City Bloodbath. Everybody's really tired of hearing me talking about it, but I'm going to keep talking about it until everybody signs up. August 16th, 17th, 18th, Warhammer Sigmar, 40k, and doubles, singles, Night Vault, Free Blades, Batman, Rumble Slam, Gamer Garage
It's
Sale.
not a game.
Yeah, it's more of a
Rumble Slam's not a real game.
We got a painting competition this year. We're getting that prized by Army Painter, some nice paint sets and masterclass brushes. So it's going to be nice. So do submit your models in for the paint competition. We've got carpet this year, again, by popular demand. We've got great meals. It's going to be an amazing event. And I want to encourage everybody to come, even if you're not going there to win it. Most people aren't. You're going to have a great time, play lots of 40K, meet lots of new people, and have a fantastic time. Ottawa, EY Center, August 16th, 17th, 18th. All the details are on capitalcitybloodbath.com. Check it out, and hope to see everybody there. Currently, we're at 80 signups for 40K. That's about just under a month in. 2 months to go, so that's looking pretty healthy. We've got 34, I believe, for Sigmar out of a cap, probably a pretty hard cap of 50, so not too much space left for Sigmar. And doubles, we've got as much space as people need. We've got, I think, about 14 teams on both sides, so that's pretty good. Night Vault players out there, if you were thinking of coming, you need to sign up soon, because there's all of one sign up right now. That's Weber.
Yeah, you would be signed up.
Yeah, so come play with Weber, or we're going to have to get him to do some manual labor or something. And if you are playing in an event, you get free entry into the painting competition. So there's really nothing to lose. Stick your best painted model into the painting competition. You never know. I don't believe we have any Golden Demon winners in Ottawa area, so if you think you paint pretty well, then you have as good a chance as anybody else. Even I suppose.
Oh, no, there's quite a few. There's a few really good painters, because we did this a few years ago.
Yeah.
There's a couple guys in Ottawa that have,
there's
really
good
nice
painters. I'm
armies.
not saying there's no good painters, just that nobody's gone over and won a Golden Demon yet. But there are definitely good painters.
It's just a lot of money to go over for a painted model if you don't live near where they present those, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's about it. We're
Cool. So the next thing I wanted to get into, Darren, is you bought all of them, right?
I bought all of what?
The contrast paints. You own everything, right?
Contrast paints. Okay. So I didn't buy any. However, I went to a random doubles event this weekend hosted by Dan and Dylan. and they gave everybody who showed up basically free contrast paint of your choice. So I got these things are $10 each. So I got $40 worth of contrast paint here, and they were doing a demo. You get to try and paint it on some primed models, and so these are basically a mix of base coat and wash, mostly wash.
So what I heard, and I haven't done it, is that if you want to make, let's say you wanted to make a contrast paint or something that's similar, all you have to do is take like an existing wash, like if you want to make a blue, like you want to match some of the blue ones, and you just mix in a little bit of blue paint. So from what I understand is it's the current GW washes with just paint pigment added.
Yeah.
So that's why you get more of a kind of more of a progression when you wash it on instead of just like kind of just flat the same color.
They're certainly much more watery than they are thick, and so they kind of flow pretty nice, but you have to glob it on pretty thick. It's actually,
and that's an issue painting in the lines. That's the one complaint I have with it is that like because you're basically you want to do your roll brown. It's like it's really hard to get the edge to edge because you paint the model white, then you literally have to get the contrast paints to line up exactly down the seam, right?
Oh,
and they're both fairly wet.
This is not like precision paint, but if you want to do like 100 Marines and they're all Dark Angels green, and you don't want to really double base and then wash them, boom, one thick layer of this. It literally, like you could probably dip it. Will do you good. Yeah, like so $10 to do your whole army, that's pretty decent. So for that kind of painting is good. I don't think it's not a high quality paint job type paint, but it's a fast, you got all these corn guys with skin that you need to paint, skeletons. Skeletons are pretty easy to paint anyway, but basically that's what this is for, and I think is really good for that, especially if you pick the right combination of primer and thingy color. But it definitely doesn't replace your like quality paint job for sure. And if there's a lot of detail, you're going to be like covering up a lot of it. Yeah.
Because they have two new primers. One's like a grayish. Well, they're both off-white essentially, but one's more grayish.
Yeah.
So I guess if you wanted a darker base, you'd spray it with that. Obviously, you can't spray it black and then do the same thing.
No.
If you want it, you could. If you wanted to, you probably could spray it black and then dust it white and try that out and see if it gives you more definition. But it probably not worth the effort.
They recommend you use one of their two new primers, but from what people have been saying and what we tried at the store, it works over like Korak's white primer just as well. So
it's probably just brighter, right, over the white.
Yeah. So I think they're cool. They definitely serve a purpose, but they're not like trying to win Golden Demon type paints. For fast army paints.
I've seen some cool stuff that people have been doing by using them over a metallic base, like a silver base, and then you get this kind of, the one that I saw was blue, but like bluish metal that looked really cool actually. So I think there's some neat tricks that those will eventually be used for, and of course, if it just gets people to paint more models, it's all right by me.
Yeah.
Or even as I see it, it's just like GW basically just took their wash range and they like quadrupled it in size. So now you have darker blues, you have lighter blues, you have red, you have more just variety of washes. Because you could essentially do the metal look before. You could have done that with Stormcast, sprayed them, and then just washed them blue if you wanted to, right? But now you could be like, oh, do I want a darker blue or a lighter blue? Mm-hmm. So either way, it's a win. More stuff to buy, right? So
yeah. Yeah, there's really like almost no excuse to put like 3 colors on something now. It's just like you literally dip it in this pot. Yeah, it's crazy.
If you're painting 120 plague bearers or something with lots of texture like that, I mean, it's going to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
And you could even like shade your units differently, slightly, like different shades of brown or different shades of green, depending on like if they're plague monks or not. And then you could tell them apart without being so stark.
So it wasn't like the airbrush launch where they just had a limited number of colors. They've launched with like the full gamut. There's like, I don't know, 80 of these colors. It's pretty, like you can paint any army now with this. Like it's got all the colors available.
Oh, it's good. It's good that they're innovating. Now, I do believe it was overhyped, but that's okay. Who cares? That's like hyped. The internet nowadays. It was pretty overhyped for what it is, but that's fine. So I want to move on to, actually, do you have any chat questions before we move on?
No, just some comments that this apparently is Duncan's new favorite thing. I'm not sure if that's true, but he's certainly part of the hype train.
Yeah, maybe he's getting commission or something, right? You never know. So I just want to quickly touch is we actually brought Darren didn't show. We were team no Darren's, but we did a CanHammer team for the War Masters Age of Sigmar team tournament 2 weeks ago. It was a really good time. It was in Guelph, Ontario. It was we did the live draw on the channel a few weeks ago, but yeah, I went down there with Will, Paul, Weber, and Kieran and myself represented CanHammer. We got middle of the pack, but it was really fun to go and see everybody.
You actually beat
Our
Conquest your first round.
Yeah, so we can talk about that. Our lists were I took Fire Slayers, and I was definitely not super practiced with the Fire Slayers, but after leaving that weekend, I have a super tuned Fire Slayer list that is, I think it's unbelievable how good they are right now. I'm expecting a nerf, honestly. We had not Gene Stealer Cult, that's crazy. We had Flesh Eater Court, Will Paul played that. And then we had Idona's Deepkin, played by Weber, and then Order Draconis, played by Kieran. And I think the Order Draconis are starting to show their age a little bit because they just can't get through the layers of infantry. So what our plan was we would put the Draconis down first, usually. We would give him both secondaries, because the way the scoring worked was if you won a game, you got 30 points. If you lost a game, you got 5. And then there was these 4 secondaries, and you could give them however you wanted. You could give 2 to one player and none to others. So we would try to put Will and I into winning matchups where we would get the 30s, and then we would use the Draconis to get to just snipe secondaries against one of their harder armies, and then we would just hope that Weber wouldn't get tabled. It was kind of our plan. But yeah, we thought we were going to go in there, lose round 1, and then we were going to play the Drake song, Start at the Bottom, Now We're Here, all weekend, because we're going to submarine up. So we actually started off with a really good start. We played one of the Dream Tea Conquest teams, and we won the round, which is surprising. We fed Kieran to Raul, who's I'd say their best player. I don't think that's controversial. He plays a lot. And Kieran went and he pulled his secondaries. He got his 15 points out of it. I played against Beastman, and I almost lost, but the dwarves just blendered his army. He went first. Sorry, I went first, moved up. He went in, got 8 points, got the double turn, scored 8 points again, and then I just kind of clawed it back. Weber got his teeth kicked in, and Will Paul won. So it was a good first round, and then the rest of the tournament was just on shaky grounds. The whole I won 3 games, lost 2. Both my losses were by 1 point.
To what factions?
I lost to what are they called? The Kane girls. Daughters of Kane. Yep. To the GW manager from London, Mr. Pont. He won that game. We both made a lot of mistakes, but what happened is I deployed a character on the left, and then my whole army in the middle, and he deployed his whole army on the right. I took the middle of the board, threw a character on with an artifact to score. I threw my character on the left flank, and then realized after deployment that character didn't have an artifact, and I put the wrong character there. So he ended up winning. That would have made a pretty big difference, I thought. But yeah, his turn 1, I killed 60 sisters.
Nice.
He pushed up a little bit. My Hearthguard Berserkers went in, fought twice, blended the first unit. I was close enough to consolidate and do it again, so he just came in, fought, and then I blended the second unit. I popped all my buffs turn 1, made them 2+ with a 4+. It's pretty gross. And they just ate 60. And then I kind of, got greedy and threw them away. So it's all my losses were my own fault. It was all player mistakes. So I don't feel bad losing when you're like, oh, it's because I did this, and this, which were really stupid. And if you're like, oh, I rolled bad and I lost, you don't learn anything. But I played like an idiot those 2 games. So, but no, it was a good event. I just wanted to give a shout out to John and Wee for running it, mostly John, but because Wee's kind of lazy, sat around all day and played.
So how many points is your big sort of that Death Star unit that you got?
Well, so this list, it was everything. It was basically my whole army was this one blob that moved up, and if you were silly enough to fight it, you lost. I have since made my Death Star unit less Death Star-y and taken more stuff. because when I played the people that just were like, "Oh, I'm not going to fight your unit," they would do really well against me. But if you decide to fight it, like so, one round I moved up and I played an Adonis Deepkin guy, and he charged me with this whole army. And then he activated one unit, killed like five dwarves or four dwarves, and then I literally just killed his entire army.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh shit!" And I was like, "Yeah, like you should never charge that unit. You just basically put chaff up, take it, and it's a lot of points. But those Hearthguard are disgusting. So I've since dropped him down to 20, taken a few less like I'm not focusing on that unit as much because 20 of them you still can't really fight.
Yeah. Is it a significant discount to take the 30?
Yeah. So, but it doesn't allow me. If I take the 30, I can't do the other tricks that I want to do right now. So one of the things is you take the Hearthguard, and then there's a formation in the book where in your enemy's hero phase, you can pick one unit within 18 inches of any of the units in the formation and give them +1 save. So what I'm doing is I'm running it's either, I think it's going to be a Rune Sin, but anyway, a fighty character on a Magmadroth. And then you give him, there's two items that do this. It's basically on a 6+, you bounce mortal wounds back on your opponent when you make a save. And so that's okay on its own. You're like, yeah, whatever. But when you can get those guys +5 to their save, now you can't fight them, and you get them to reroll ones. Now you have a guy that if your unit charges him, every successful save, which is a 2+ rerolling ones, kills one of your models.
Sounds like 7th edition 40k.
It's gross. Now, the +5 is difficult to pull off. You're more likely going to be +3, so you can guarantee a plus. You can guarantee a +1 easily. A +2 once per game is free as well, and then there's a spell on a 3+ if you have the pizza oven to go up +3 to your save, and then in your enemy's hero phase you go up +4, and then if your enemy double turns you go +5.
Interesting.
Because they did change it where you can't stack, so these are all different rules doing that too. They're all different abilities giving you +1.
We've got
cool.
Rograx, aka Tom, chirping you about Ludas there, Chris. And Tomb King Tristan, of course, was excited to hopefully see Tomb King's War Scrolls and points changes in the GHB. Unfortunately, he was gutted, as they say in England, with a lack of progress on Tomb Kings. So,
well, it depends, because like the Tomb Kings are somewhat represented. Like there's like the two branches, right? There's the Followers of Nagash, which I guess have migrated to be just undead now in the fluff. And then there was the Tomb Kings under, was it Kitep or Imhotep or whatever his name is? So the Nagash ones are alive. You can kind of play Tomb Kings now, but the actual Nikaran ones, no, they died.
Yeah.
Again. Died twice. They didn't make it off the old world.
Dead, Tristan.
Just like the Bretonnians. They didn't make it at all.
Oh, man.
Okay, so with that, War Masters was great. I have a ton of Fireslayer insight, but we should save that for an episode because I got about 5 or 6 wicked combos that I don't know. They have to get nerfed, some of them, so we'll see how they come. But it's a really good army, and looking at the dispossess changes, I don't think it's enough to make them compete with Fireslayers. So that's the problem right there.
But dispossess, the warriors went up. They're more expensive.
But everything else went down. So
yeah, I mean, because the dwarf warriors so OP that they needed to go up. I don't understand that one.
Yeah, Rob, it's all your fault, Rob. You got your faction nerfed.
Well, they were the only good thing in that list, right? And so if you make the characters cheaper, you got to make the troops more, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe also it's for people that were taking them as battle line in a general Grand Alliance order. Maybe that's what they were trying to address. Not so much dispossess themselves being strong, but the battle line in order. Yeah.
Well, since we've already started, that's what our main topic of the show is going to be. We have the book has not come out yet, so at the time of recording, we're about a week shy. But certain foreign countries have released everything already, so we have everything. We're not going to go through them detail by detail, but maybe we're going to talk about some factions, what's changed, and whether we think they've gotten better or worse. I know Darren it thinks every one of his armies got worse, but that's
Literally.
just him sulking, I think. But
Oh, no,
That's
they literally
just
did. So I mean, there's two big things about. We'll talk about points obviously in a second, but the two interesting things is number one, the points part is a separate supplement, which they've already said is going to be something that they're going to update more frequently than once a year. And so in this, no, there's no point changes for almost any of the books released in the last like 3-4 months. So Fire Slayers, Skaven, Gits, those guys, Flesh Eaters. None of those guys have points changes. And interestingly, there are new points for Sylvaneth, even though that book has not been released yet. So
of the
yeah.
4 that don't have releases, like they don't have points in this release, Flesh Eaters probably need to go up in points a little bit. Fire Slayers probably have to have some points changes because they're a bit over top. Gloomspite, they're a bit underwhelming. And Skaven are a little bit overwhelming. So you have 3 books that need a little bit of a tweak downwards, and you have 1 that needs a tweak upwards, right?
So the real question for us will be...
They said they're going to release it digitally in July, so in like 3 weeks we're going to have those points.
Oh, that's great.
Hopefully this will happen in plenty of time for Capital C Bloodbath, but unless it's like the week before, we're probably going to end up using it, but we'll see. But yeah, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, so, you know, if we're just focused on match play,
which we are.
They have written, there's some new things here. So they have basically written a separate page for tournaments, which is like the GW tournament pack. And they've put things like you need to show up with three colors on your paint scheme. You need to, like, it's literally a player pack, and then it sets out all the rules that they expect for tournaments. You need to use GW terrain, like their actual model sets, and if you don't, they have to be max this size. And you have to have 10 pieces, and it's player placed, and they have to be this far from everything, this far from everything. And one of the new things, which is really interesting, is so 10 pieces of terrain minimum. Each player places 5. They have to be so much inches from the edge and from objectives. So it actually takes up a lot of table space. And most of their terrain pieces are pretty big. And then that's after you place the objectives. And then you place your faction terrain, like Narholes or your ships and stuff. And then those have restrictions over 6 inches from the edge, blah blah blah, same restrictions, but they also have their own restrictions as in their book. So I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, Narholes cannot actually be placed
as written. Narholes cannot be legally placed,
they
but
have to be within 6 inches of the board edge.
Have to be within 8 of the board edge, but they're 4 inches across, so they can't both be within 8 and outside of 6. It's mutually exclusive there. However, today on Facebook, I saw a Warhammer community respond to someone about those things, and they said that they were going to FAQ and errata the faction-specific terrain, and in the meantime, to just ignore that for faction-specific terrain. So they know that that's a mistake.
Yeah, so maybe that was their way of nerfing Skaven, just make the terrain unusable.
I'm pretty sure making the Narholes illegal was not their intent.
Well, that's the one thing that it doesn't irk me, but nobody bought their. They've been producing like terrain for almost every faction for a while now, and it's like nobody bought it, so they made it free. So now everybody buys it, and like every army that you play, you now need a piece of terrain for it, which is pretty funny.
Well, you know why
you don't need it.
A big part of the reason they're doing that is that terrain is built in China, and their Nottingham factory is at capacity, so they can't push more plastic through it. But if they're selling terrain, they can make it in China and ship it over.
Oh.
So I think that's why they're pushing it so hard.
Interesting.
Because it's one of those things where you're like, oh, I don't really need it. Like the Fire Slayer one it's pretty good, but some of them you're like, this is like I could take it or leave it, but it's free. I gotta buy it.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna not use a +1 to cast in a Null if I can, right? It's gotta be.
So they added 6 more different terrain types anyway. So now it's like 12 of them. The real question is, like, so this is pushed forward by them as kind of matched play rules. And so the real question is, number one, how many people are going to adopt this as how they play Sigmar from now on? And number two, what was the intent of this? Like, do they intend everybody to play this way, or is this just how they're going to play it at Warhammer Heats? Or like like we've all been playing without terrain rules basically for Sigmar. Not like the little what each terrain is,
No,
but
so we do. If you're talking like the three of us, we play without terrain
no, I don't
rules.
mean without terrain rules. I mean like you need to have 10 terrain pieces, and they have to be like it's really prescriptive.
It used to say that. They've had that in the past where it was like two terrain per quarter guidelines. I think it just, when you do rules like that, it makes it more accessible to new people. So you have a guy that's like, I don't actually know how to run a terrain. I have this set of guidelines. Now, ultimately, as a TO, you can run however you want. But if you look at when they start, if you want newer players to play in tournaments, you need to standardize tournaments, because otherwise they go to one and their list is awesome. And then they go to the next one and their list is trash because the missions are wonky. And then they end up getting frustrated. And the one thing about this is AOS terrain has an impact, but it's very, very small in a lot of tournaments. So I go to a tournament, I look at the table, I go, okay, that one corner has a line of sight blocker that I can get my character behind. The rest doesn't. So it's like, and I can't fit my units in all the terrain, so it does nothing. So now it's random what these pieces do.
Yeah.
Whereas now maybe they're encouraging you to have it like, you know what the terrain does, because this is a forest, that's a crater, and you can purposely put the forest like in the middle to maybe funnel your opponent or slow them down. Because I have some characters in my army that have an impact on terrain, so me being able to place terrain like around objectives and on the other side of objectives is really good for me, because I can just cast a spell and make it dangerous.
Yeah, be interesting to see how it develops. Whether people start using it or not. I guess we should start seeing that a lot in the UK. We'll see if they kind of follow the guidelines.
It's hard here because we're not as consistent in AOS in North America.
Yeah.
Like a lot of events aren't even ranked right here.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So the other new thing is to add is 3 new command abilities: reroll ones to hit, reroll ones to hit and shooting, and reroll ones to save. So that gives everybody
shooting, buddy.
That basically is a pretty useful CP, and there's a lot of armies now that can get like 5 to 10 CP, like Gits. So is it getting too CP bloated now? Who knows? It was hard to get it at first. Now everybody's got these things that give them extra CPs. Yeah, but
it's not a lot though. Like starting a game with 3 CP or 4 CP is like a ton still. Like going through 9 CP in a game to me is like, wow, you're playing a really CP heavy army.
Yeah, like Gits.
Like Gits.
Gits is you bring a fungoid and Skragov the Loon King, and I've ended games with 9 CP, and I've been spending like 3 turns because they can generate them like silly under the moon. So one turn you can get plus 5 CP with that army. It's a little much.
So now you can reroll your charges, get 6 auto advance. You can not take morale, reroll ones to hit, reroll ones to save. Boom, there you go. Like
you stack a lot of that on a mangler, and all of a sudden you got a pretty tasty Alpha Strike unit.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing that's sad is like rerolling ones to hit in the shooting phase. I just gave a lot of Stormcast stuff a huge buff, because they got a lot of really high end shooting, and if you're able to reroll ones to hit, it's gonna be even more mortal wounds, even more shots, and they can table people as it is with shooting some builds, right?
3 people too, I think.
Free people, maybe the bone splitter shooting thing comes back. Who knows?
Well, if the Bretonians were still there, you could take like the huge unit of archers that like shoot 3 times. No, I'm just kidding. They're dead. They're dead.
So the other thing that they've done is, so they didn't release, as I thought they would, 6 new missions. What they've done is updated all of the previous 18 missions. So there are no new missions, but all of the 18 missions have been updated with different deployments. Some of them are kind of weird. And you should see the map for relocation orb now. It's really stupid. It's got curves in it, and
they shouldn't do curves.
It's crazy stupid. But anyway, so that's as unusable as it was before. But they've also changed some of the way the deployments work, how you score. Like Star Strike is now like 16 different zones. Total commitment has been changed, so it's like. So they've changed where the objectives sit. So they have updated the previous 18 missions. So we'll have to go through and figure out which ones are good and bad again. They haven't added new ones. So that's interesting.
That's kind of good, because in the previous edition, the missions were fantastic in the General Handbook, both sets of missions. But this last General's Handbook for AOS 2 the 2018 one, I found all 6 missions just a little bit like weird. There were some weird things with it. They favored certain armies, like, oh, wizards and artifacts can score, but priests can't. Like, to me, that was like a major oversight because some armies don't have wizards, and then like you can only get a second artifact if you take a battalion. And some factions don't have battalions, right? Or like they do, but they're so expensive. You're like, I don't want to take that. So
Yeah, yeah.
that
So
irked
it's
me.
interesting. I'm quite interested to play through a bunch of those. We'll need to decide soon, like what we actually put into Capital City Bloodbath. So, but yeah. So those were kind of the major changes. There was a lot of there was new rules, faction rules for Seraphon, Iron Jaws, Free People, Slaves to Darkness. Like all the people don't have books yet. Um, even though the rumor
Or
is the
really,
Seraphon book
really
is coming. Yeah, some of them got more. Like Seraphon got like 4 pages with all command abilities and relics and all that sort of stuff. Ironjaw's got the same. They got new battalions and things like that. So, so there's some stuff in there for everybody. What they didn't do was they said that they had hinted in their Warhammer community post that they were releasing new war scrolls for compendium armies, but they did not. And they just reprinted the previous points, but they did not adjust them at all. So that's just reprinting stuff that was already out there. So
And compendium stuff generally is no longer playable
yeah,
in tournaments, correct? Like that's I know
we
some
didn't run it
tournaments
last
do,
year. We're not running it this year. Yeah,
but yeah, we don't run them in
I
our
was gonna
tournaments.
think about
But
it if they brought out like a whole bunch of new war scrolls, but yeah,
well, why would they, right? Like war scrolls come out when you produce a model kit. So why would they ever produce a new Bretonnian war scroll when there's no new model kits and you can't even buy the old stuff? Like really, I think can you buy any of it? I didn't even look. I don't care. I
you
have
have to
like
go
3
on
bins of it.
eBay or something. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's like, what's the point? I actually kind of was hoping, and I know this is like controversial, and I said this like 2 years
I know
ago.
what you're gonna say.
I think they should have just cut it out. They should
Yeah,
have just removed it.
I mean, in
Done.
effect, that's what's happened, right?
Put the points that are in the General's Handbook, put them on the internet, on the community site. Here's legacy points. They're not a part of the game anymore. It's time to call it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Once they're called, oh, I have a Tomb King army, which I know some people do. Well, you know, those skeletons are still skeletons. Just do some counts as stuff. It's hard with the big monsters and stuff, but maybe they could do Tomb Kings. Like that could be. That's one of the factions I'm sad to see go, actually. But the models just were so out of date with the big hands.
Kawaii
Yeah.
hands,
Yeah.
claws.
Cool. So you want to go through kind of like not like details, but army by army, and just kind of give our thoughts. So like the Beastmen, they're
Cool.
first, right?
Yeah, Gore's got cheaper.
Yep.
Scores are what 70 now.
70, yeah. That's good.
Yeah, I know.
All the Enlightened, which that goes for Chaos too, they all went up.
Yep.
Mhm.
Enlightened went up 160 now. Oh no, 160. Yeah. Zangor Shaman
Yep.
160. Yep.
Zangor
Skyfire's 200.
Yeah, the Shaman went down, which is fine because when they originally did the nerf, they were like the Skyfires. They buffed them way up in points, and I know this because I used to play the army. They buffed them way up in points, and they buffed the Shamans to the point where you couldn't really take a feasible army anymore. They like over nerfed it. I don't think the Shaman should have ever really went up that high. But Skyfire should. They're kind of appropriate because
Well, they went
they do
down
a lot
and
of
then they
damage
went
at
back
range.
up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've changed like every time they've changed. Yeah.
Yeah, but the Enlighten are nasty because what happens is if they're not the first unit to activate, they get to reroll hits and wounds, and they have a buttload of attacks, and they move like 19 inches in charge. So you're like, oh, turn 1, you come in, you kill my whole unit. This is great. Whereas, and the guys could just take like 18 of them or something, even more than that. You could take like 20 something of them. Whereas now maybe you're limited in the amount of them you can take, or you lose some of your support elements. So I'm okay with them going up. I still think they're going to be competitive in their current. Like, if you lose a couple of units of them, your army's still going to be just as effective, or mostly.
So what's interesting is, so in some of these units you get the discount for taking like a max unit. The discount is generally about like 20% or something like that. 20, 40 points or whatever. from what I can tell from what I was watching, some of the discounts are now much deeper, almost like free units basically for taking max for certain units. So it'll be
Well, the
interesting.
Hearthguard are like that now. They go up in increments of 5, and if you take 30 and you bump it down to 25, it's the same points cost.
Yeah, yeah. So
So you're like,
we'll
you
see
never
when we get
take
the bump.
25, obviously. But if you want to get down to that sweet 20 range to free up, because it makes a big difference, because you can fit in an extra trick, you have to basically drop 10 dudes, which sucks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's see.
So Blades of Corn, anything change in the corn?
Nothing changed in corn actually. Not a single
Which is
change.
surprising because it's not bad, it's not great, but it's middle of the road. Bloodthirsters are good. They're fast fighting. That's good. So nothing changed for corn. What about and Skaven?
Well,
Yeah.
Skaven, we're going to know in the digital update, right, in July.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
So
But
Varengard went
I have a
down.
guess. I'm pretty sure Plague Monks are going to go up.
Probably. You know what they really need to do with Plague Monks is clean up the rules about
But yeah,
rerolls
there's
and stuff.
so
Like,
annoying. People.
you have to like separate your dice into like 4 separate piles, and they're all different. And so yeah, they need to clean that up. But Gaunt Summoner went up 160. Varengard
Yeah.
went
So
down.
Disciples, Varengard went down, or the rest of the Chaos.
Yeah, and that's about it.
Varengard needed to go down though, because
You can't play them.
if you
They're
run
crazy expensive.
they're crazy good too, but they just don't go. You need more units, right? Like that's the one thing that's kind of interesting about AOS, because I'm getting back into it heavy again for some reason. When you have to hold 3 objectives, most armies, if you ignore characters, only have 3 to 6 units max. So you need to actually leave several units back, usually to hold your backfield. And so problem that I have a lot with is I have trouble like basically blocking out my backfield from enemy like teleportation or deep striking, and holding my objectives and pushing on the enemy. I find you need a lot of little dinky units to do that, and a lot of armies can't do that. So
Yeah, and running
There's a
like
lot of teleportation.
yeah, and there's
there's
so many
tons
ways
of
of
it.
moving around now. Seraphon can literally just move 1 unit for free every turn. So there's so many ways of moving units around. Now Ironjaw's got Hand of Gork as well. So
I was looking forward to using that.
yeah, like almost every army has some way of coming in on any side. And so if you just don't have enough units, you just can't survive that way. And there's so many missions where if you cap an opponent's objective, you basically win. Like if you do that one time, you kind of win. So it's hard to deal with that if you've got like 4 units Archeon and 3 units of Vanguard, and that's it. Like you're just not gonna win.
Yeah, because the way it most of my games are like plus or minus a point is what you win by. So you just like, I'm going to take my 2, you take your 2, and it's whoever wins the middle, or whoever wins this objective, or I scored this a turn earlier, so I win. So
Yeah.
some of the monsters went down, right? The Monsters of Chaos.
So the if we're talking the Forge World guys, so I've got it here. The big corn Greater Demon went to 540.
Mm-hmm.
The Slanesh Greater Demon went to 460. The Zinch one went to 480. And lo and behold, the Morn Goal is 280 now. Woo! That's another yo-yo unit that keeps going up and down.
So
depending on how many
Chimera
people
stayed
play
the
them.
same, right?
Yeah, there were no other big changes there.
That's unfortunate. I like Chimeras, but I wish they would have went down a little bit. That was just my little pet peeve there.
I think they're
was trying
pretty
to shoehorn
careful
that in.
about. They're pretty careful about bringing points down on Forge World models because in AOS they still have a bad name. So
Well, Chimera is a regular model. It's like a super glass cannon, and so it's like usually people summon them. But okay, so we'll move on to Death.
oh
Darren.
dear. Oh.
Rent away.
Okay. Dire Wolves are 70 now instead of 60. Okay, they were pretty cheap.
That's fair.
Necromancer got nerfed to 130. Okay. Arcan is 340. Manfred 380. Nobody used him. Nagash went up to 850. Like, it's already 800 points, man. It's like, God.
Yeah, it needed to go up
No.
because he needed to go up for one reason. Because when you can take a 30-man Nighthawk unit and for 1 CP bring it back, that's a lot of free cheddar.
Yeah, but you can do that with any death hero.
Yeah, but it's he I don't know. He just does more
That's
work
way
with
too
his
much for
spells.
one model.
I think he's fine.
Warp lightning cannon, ganks Nagash in one shooting phase. Like, come on, 850 is
Like,
too much.
well, okay, so but most armies can't do that. My army really struggles with Nagash because I can't conga line, which means it minimizes the damage output of my Hearthguard, and everything's about me. So, but like, because he has Handed Dust, I have to double rank all my units,
Yeah,
right?
which is a random 50% chance of doing something after a
Yeah.
nine
But
casting
if I
cost.
screw up, it's
The
a
3-inch
50%
range.
chance to kill like 200 points.
Still, it's too much. He didn't need to be changed. Neferata went down to 380. Graveguard got reduced by a lot. They're now 360
Good.
for a max unit. Even Morghast went to 200. Down to 200. There was Olinder got a lot cheaper because she was crap. Reikenor came down. Black Coach. Chain Gas went up to 70 from 60, which is interesting.
Ooh. That's a big change because a lot of lists have a lot of them in
A
it.
lot of Chain Gas, yeah. And
So
Grim Gas went,
you're talking losing. That's like an extra 30, 60, 90 points per army in a lot of armies.
yeah. And the big boogeyman, of course, were the Grimgas Reapers that went up to 160, which
Them
is
too.
quite the nerf. Banshees, about the same, 70. I think they went down a little bit. And the Harridans, those flying, like, hairy guys, went down as well. So I think they're just trying to get people to use things other than Chain Gas and Grimgas Reapers for Night Haunts. But, yeah.
They were too good, man. They were no brainers.
Yeah, why would
Like
you
we
take
played those
anything?
guys. Like I play against them. I'm just like I can't get through those units. Well, my Firesiders can, but my other armies can't get through them.
Yeah, and now that you can spend CP on reroll ones to hit, you don't need Nagash to give them that anymore. So now maybe Grimgas are actually better in a Night Hunt army, whereas they were way better in a Nagash army before than in a Night Hunt army. But now you can give them reroll ones to save, like Nagash's ability, give them reroll ones to hit, like Nagash's ability. So maybe they get some of that functionality back just by spending CP. So that's interesting.
And since Feck's not in this, so we'll ignore them. Do you think Death is better off, worse? Well, it's obviously worse off.
It's worse
But
off.
do you think it's you think there's still a top tier playable book or a medium tier?
I don't think they were top tier anytime recently. Not since before Christmas, for sure.
Most teams had a Death player at the team event.
Yeah, that's because they're still painting up their Skaven army.
Flesh Eater Court.
Or their Flesh Eater army, right? I just happen to have a Flesh Eaters because that's the first army I had. But no, it's like, yeah, I don't think you can play the old Legions of Nagash list anymore. I was already at 1990 and all my units just got hit. So, you know, like.
Well, you just got to drop a unit,
I
right?
gotta
Just drop
like
one
a
unit.
whole unit of something. And I only had like 6 units to start with. So,
Yeah, but you did some wreck and face with that, so.
if I got lucky on my casts, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty easy to cast with. So destruction, any major changes there?
Oh, I want to talk about Iron Jaws. There's some
Sure,
interesting.
let's do Iron Jaws first then.
I don't. I mean, they went pretty light on the points drops, but a lot of things dropped. So the macro shows both went down by 20. Gordrak and the regular one. Bruce went down only 10. I don't know if that's enough, but it's a step in the right direction.
Brutes are good, man. They're really
Brutes
good.
are good, but here's my but here. Hard Boys went down again by another 20 points. So now they're super cheap. So now, point for point, Hard Boys, which were already pretty good in the Iron Jaws book, are now by far the best unit, in my opinion. And it's the worst sculpt. It's so bad. See, the Brutes, the Purpurantas, they look awesome. The Hard Boys, they don't. But Hard Boys, I mean, honestly, 120 Hard Boys is probably a legitimate build at this point. That would work, I think.
So is
And the
Gordrak,
battalion, so...
is Gordrak usable now? 540? 560?
Well, I mean, he's good. If you build around him, I think so, yeah. But it's not going to be top tier, even with this and the new Allegiance abilities.
He's not good because of Skaven.
But
There's too much shooting right now. Stormcast and Skaven, just take them off.
yeah,
That's my biggest beef right now is that, like, there's just too much, like, oh, that thing's dead. Same. I guess that's why Nagash went from being, like, pretty good to meh, because
Yeah.
he's going to get shut off in 1 or 2 games at every tournament.
So, like, Arcan was a big thing. Legion of Sacrament, right? It was winning all sorts of things. And then all this shooting came out. Now you don't see Arcan at all because he just died,
Fair enough.
right?
yeah. Darren, how he feels about my warp lightning cannons.
Oh, dude. Anyway, we'll see what happens to those suckers.
Yeah.
So did any of the Gutbuster stuff come down?
I don't know about I don't think the Gutbusters changed. Some
Beast Claw
Stonehorn stuff
Raiders?
came down. Yeah, so the Stonehorn Beast Riders is 300, Thunder Tusks 320, Stonehorns 320, Morn Fangs are 140 for 2. So I think they all came down a little bit, like 20 points here and there.
Did Yetis come down? No.
Not that I know of. No.
Damn. Okay, because they're still good. And I guess the rest of the stuff's coming out, but nothing major there.
Yep.
Now order anything crazy?
Hurricanum. How much
it
was
go
the
up?
Hurricanum before?
380.
It's 300 now.
No fucking way.
That is there a different one with a dude on it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
just the plain old Hurricanum is 300.
Which is a new option, I think. It wasn't an option before. They added that.
Okay, I don't
So
know. I just know
it
Chris
came
loves
with the mage.
Hurricanums.
I believe it was the same points cost for him with the mage or not,
Yeah.
right?
But they did the same thing with the Phoenix. It used to be the same points with and without rider, and now they gave them points without the rider. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal because when he was 380, like the caster was pretty good to have a caster on him, but just making that thing cheaper because it's +1 to hit for all friendly order units, that's actually huge. That's a big difference for me because the mage didn't add as much value as. So I'm totally okay with that.
So Witch Elves went to 120, which was probably reasonable, and the Hag Queen, which was only 60 points, is now 90, which is probably
90,
also
yeah, he
reasonable.
went up 50%. That's huge.
Heartrender is 90. So Deepkin got a lot of changes. I think mostly A, to tune down eels, and also B, to make people play other shit in the book. Because the other stuff is actually good.
The core guys went up too, right?
Yeah, but it's because the other stuff is actually good, but it was never as good as eels, so why would you
The thrall,
play it?
yeah. The thralls went up, right?
Yeah, thralls went up, which is weird. 130.
No, because the bowmen, like you would never take them over the thralls, but now you will.
Yeah, the bowmen went to No, the reavers are the same. 130.
They also went up.
Yeah. I
Okay,
don't
never
understand
mind.
why those guys
I
went
didn't read
up.
that
but-
full there.
So
That's
the
brutal.
turtle came down to 350, which is a big drop. I think the
Good.
turtle's actually pretty good. So that's good. The Eidolon came down 20 points. The Soul Render came down, but the Scryer dude went up. Lotan.
Oh, Scryer guy needed to go up, man.
Yeah.
+3 to charge. Come on,
Yeah.
that's
And,
gross. I'm gonna pick one of your units, and my whole. Yeah, we're all charging you.
One of my favorite models, the Shark dude, went down a little bit. I think the Shark
They
dude
needed
was
to, man. I
actually
played
kinda
4 of
nifty.
those. I played a guy with 4 of those. They did nothing.
Yeah. Okay, Phoenix with the dude on it went up, obviously, because they were way undercosted before. 320. I think they went up like 60 points or something like that. Frostheart with
But that's
Phoenix.
still not bad for them.
No, it's still pretty good for something you can't kill.
That's the guy in the frost. The anointed on the frost, right?
Yeah. The Dragon Lords went up to 380, but the Knights went down to 120, so it kind of equals itself out.
No, that's huge difference, buddy. You mean talking Draconis now, right?
Yeah, Draconis.
Yeah, so the Dragon Lords going up isn't a big deal. The Knights going down is huge because the more of those Knights you get, it basically makes the dragons exponentially better because the horn affects all units, give them +1 attack. So if you can now fit in like 2 extra Knight units of 5, now you can have 2 units with like +2, +3 attack going in. And you're just going to clear way more stuff.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's actually a pretty big deal because the Knights are the best part of that list.
Snoop DeVille, welcome. Budtastic guy, welcome. Croak 430. That's pretty expensive for a little model. Maybe it seems a lot because he's such a small model, but anyway.
He does a lot, or he did a lot, and they nerfed him into the ground.
Yeah. Engine of the Gods 240. Skinks are 70. I don't think that's a change, is it? Skinks.
Yeah,
Did the
Skinks
Prime?
was
Do you have the
60.
Prime?
Oh, yeah, so we're coming to Stormcast next.
Oh.
Okay. Ballista's 110 now from 100.
Yeah, I know. That's brutal, dude. That's brutal.
Fire Strike, that dude on the Pegasus or something, right? 340.
He had to go up. He was too good.
Gavriel Surecharge 120.
What was he before? 100?
I think it was like 80 or 100, something like that.
Yeah. He needed to go up too.
Lord Aquilor 180. Lord Arcanum 160. The Lord Castellan 120.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the guy that gives everybody like +1 save or something? The Castellan.
I don't know. I can't see the word. I have to see it to know what you're talking
There's
about.
too many Lord something. You can't
Lord
use
Yeah.
it.
something, yeah, and irrigators and
I think he's the one that gets +1 to hit.
okay, yeah, he did something good, but he got nerfed a bit. Evocators up to 220, which obviously needed to happen. Sequitors up to 130,
Yep,
and
need to happen.
the crossbow dudes 170 for 3.
Well, those guys needed to go up,
Yeah, yeah,
especially if you can reroll ones with them. That's disgusting.
yeah.
That's disgusting. So my my Stormcast list is just so much better now, even though it wasn't the best list. Is I was taking 20 Judicators and I was giving them the Hurricanum, so they all hit on 2+. But now they reroll ones. That's pretty crazy, and it's cheap in Battle Line.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't think you're gonna win a tournament with a list like that, but it's pretty fucking cool.
All right, so on to Sylvaneth. So I'm thinking the Sylvaneth book was supposed to come out before.
No. You didn't cover the Prime.
Oh,
Did he
sorry.
go down?
I don't know. I didn't look at the Prime.
You gotta look. You gotta look. You gotta look.
Francois will look for you.
I got my
Because
paper here. I'm trying to
because
find it.
if he goes down to a certain point,
You're playing him.
and I didn't look before the cast because I wanted to be like on air when I wanted to hear this because this guy, this is the reason why I didn't play OS2 is because this guy couldn't teleport in one mission. And it ruined him. But if he goes down cheap enough, he could be a good artillery piece.
I can't find him now.
He got.
Okay, we'll come back.
He got squatted.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'll keep
yeah.
looking.
So the Sylvaneth book was interesting because I guess it was supposed to come out before this because the new points are in here. So Ilario went up to 660, which is a nerf. So, but the book hasn't come out yet. So I'm assuming when the book comes out, we're going to see these points.
She's gonna be better in the new book for sure.
Oh, Celestin Prime 340. That's the same, right?
Same. Okay, the rumor is wrong.
Get did.
No, that sucks. That's brutal. The rumor was, this is the rumor that some little birdie told me, which is obviously BS, was he was going down like a lot. Because he's essentially in the one mission unplayable. And he also, because you have to keep him out of the game for like 2 or 3 turns to get his attacks up, he just isn't that effective.
Yeah, by then the game might be decided already.
A lot of times it is.
And 340 is too much for a piece to be off.
Yep.
Especially in an army where the model count's very low.
Yeah, yeah.
That sucks.
He'd
I'm
be
so
like
upset.
200
I'm done.
points or something, right?
Hang up. Bye, guys. I'm done. Oh, man. I was hoping he'd be like 200.
Oh.
He
No,
probably
he'd be like-
needs to be like 200, 250, something like that.
So he needs to be, the only thing is he needs to be cheap enough to be an artillery piece where you're just like, I'm going to sit him back. I'm going to do my comet. And he has to be at a value where that's worthwhile. And then some games you'll be like, okay, he's going to be my only forward unit. Everything else is going to hold the line. Comes in, kills something.
Yeah. So, Kurnoth Hunters of all shapes are 200 points now. Dryads are unchanged. And that was it. Then Ilario got nerfed by 60 points.
I'm sure they're good enough special rules that, like, if Dryads are good, okay now, and if they get a couple buffs or rules. One thing that we did notice is kind of unrelated to this, but it does relate to the Sylvaneth, is they're actually starting to rewrite War Scrolls a little bit. So in the Fire Slayers, they changed stats and like the way that items worked in that book. Like on the because before they never used to change the War Scrolls, right? They'd be like, you just do this, but they're starting to fix the wording, clean it up, change abilities. Like Volkites lost their 4+ save, but they gained a fight when they die.
If you get a new book, you have to read carefully because things may not be the same.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Yeah, because you assume it's the same because you're used to like the last couple editions where you're like, oh, it's just different points, but no, they're all different.
No, things definitely changed.
There's so many War Scrolls are written terribly. The early ones. I mean, just coming at it from the Iron Jaws army that I have, these War Scrolls just don't really work with the current Sigmar rules, so they just need to be rewritten completely. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, Flesh Eaters was like that when I was reading through the book. I'm like, this is just subtly different, but different.
It's a big deal. Some things like my initial impression of the Fire Slayers was they're crap. They lost their 4+ save, and I completely overlooked that everything went up a wound. Like that was like my first like day, and then it was like I was like, oh, they're all 2 wounds, so they're better.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Okay, and then we're left with the endless spells. So there's some interesting changes here.
Oh yeah,
So the pendulum went to 50. I believe that's down.
yep.
Cogs went up to 80 from 60, which is
Thank
probably
God.
warranted.
Should have
Swarm
went
went
up to
down.
100
Life
even.
Swarm went down to 50. Geminids went up to 60. They were what, 40? 40 or 50
Yeah,
for
they were
Gemini?
too cheap. They were way too cheap.
The Maelstrom, which nobody uses, is now 10, which literally you could almost throw in any list just for fun.
But no, it's nice to have a 10-point piece though to throw
That's the one
in.
that denies, right? You can build it denies powers and then builds up powers. Is that the Maelstrom, Malevolent Maelstrom? That's pretty decent for some armories who don't have a lot of denies. You just slap it out there for 10 points.
If you have a wizard, you can
Yeah.
slap it out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Some armies just can't use them.
Purple Sun is now 50 from 100.
Yep.
I wonder if we'll see some Purple Suns.
I think for 50 you might now, right?
Maybe. It's a bit dangerous to yourself, though. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just
then-
need that one turn.
Yeah. The Quicksilver Swords went from 20, which was way too cheap, up to only 30. So that's a little change. Shackles went from 20 to 40, which was probably.
Yeah, it needed to happen. Shackles was way too good.
Yeah. Yeah. Gravetide.
Like Shackles would screw up your whole opponent's line. Because you could put them 6 inches, like they covered so much ground. And yeah, it was random, but it sucked playing against Shackles, man. I hated it.
Yeah, it's like the Skaven spell, which probably will go up to like 120 or something.
Don't break my heart. I love that.
Spell Portal 70, so went up again.
Good.
Like, who's using Spell Portal now, other than Nagash, who just got a 50-point bitch slap? So, like, seriously.
It's still really good.
And yeah, those are all the endless spells. None of the recent ones obviously got changed, but they might in the next.
Did any of the Stormcast ones change?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I didn't look at that though. I didn't pay attention to that. I think like that bull thing for the Beast of Chaos went down, the Taurus or whatever it's called.
Okay.
But any of the recent books, they all have endless spells. Those didn't change yet because that'll probably be in the next publication.
Yeah, and a lot of the endless spells I find overpriced, and so now they've come down. A lot of them, they needed something that's like 10 points because like so many times you get a 960 list and you're like, this sucks. I can't do anything with it. But now I'll throw in a 30-point spell and a 10-point spell, done. I like that.
Yeah. There's also this, if you're at like 1950, do you buy an endless spell which you might not use in 3 out of 5 games, or do you just take a CP? There's that conflict for that last kind of 50 points, or
Now CP. Now that they have the 3 new ones, 100%.
yeah,
Because it was actually hard to spend more than like some armies would spend them all. Like Iron Jaws would just spend them all in one turn. So you'd be like, I'll save them all up. But a lot of armies, it's like you only want to spend 1 or 2 a turn max. So there's no real. It's like most armies don't need it. They just I spend 1 a turn. I get 1 a turn. Who cares? Whereas now, it's like, well, that 1 turn I'm rerolling ones to hit. If you can somehow get +1 to hit, now almost all your attacks are hitting. So that 1 turn when I'm into you, I'm killing everything. It's a big deal.
yeah. So we'll see if making them cheaper matters because CP is so much better now. We'll see. And I think that
Or maybe
was
people will
the
be
main
taking
stuff.
more War Scroll battalions. Like I'm already trying to fit 2 in
Well,
most of my lists, and
but some armies like Gitz and Skaven, their battalions are pretty bad. I mean, there's a good
Yeah.
squig for Gitz. The Skaven one, there's a good one for Plague Monks, but if you're not playing Plague Monks, they're terrible. And not only are they bad, they're super expensive. So other than the filth one for the Plague Monks, I would never take a battalion in a Skaven army. And I don't think anyone does either. So
yeah, there's definitely a discrepancy there between like some of the books. Like I'm playing 2 right now in my dwarves, my first layers, and then, but it makes a huge difference for going second or going first, right?
well,
Yeah.
for Iron Jaws, because all their battalions went down, including the mega battalions, I think you're going to see a lot more of those 1-drop, Bloodtooth, and the other one,
Well,
forget-
yeah, a lot of them still are doing because the
Yeah,
Iron Jaws need the double turn, right? So they always want to go second. So if you're 1-drop, you go second, then you're pushing up, risking the double turn, going into your opponent +10 attacks, and then you
yeah.
maybe win
I
the
found
game.
it. The mega battalions went down 40, and most of the other ones went down 20. So you're basically saving 60 points on that one drop, right? That's pretty good.
Is it enough to save them, you think?
No. I think they're gonna be better. The allegiance ability being not random now. Now you spend a command point to do your mighty destroyer move.
Yeah.
And you can also now fight in the hero phase with it. So that's going to be interesting, and it's no longer random. You don't just roll for the characters. You just pay a command point and you get it. That's huge.
Once per turn?
Once per turn, once per unit per turn. So you can't do the trick. I was hoping you could, but they thought about it. You can't do a trick where you would charge in your hero phase, then fight in your hero phase. You have to do just one. But still, that's pretty good. And remove.
So you could just move if you have 5 CP, let's say, you could move your whole army.
As I understand it, yeah, as long as you have enough CP to pick different units, you could just move them like that. I think the restriction is once per unit, not once per phase. But I don't have the book in my hands, obviously, but I think that's it. So that's going to be big. And then the spell lore is going to finally give the Weird Knob a reason to exist.
Yeah.
The Weird Knob is just terrible for 120 points. But now that he can take the Mighty Hand of Gork and teleport a unit, well, then maybe probably take him every time now, just for that.
The only problem.
And how many Ard Boys can you? Sorry, how many Ard Boys can you put in a unit?
Well, Hardboy is 140 for 10, and they go up to units of 30. So a unit of 30 would be 420.
But they don't get a discount?
No, not anymore. They used to. Now the 30 is still cheaper now than it used to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the only problem.
That's pretty darn cheap. Because there's the unit of 10 for 140 has 20 wounds and a 4-up save. It's pretty good.
The only problem I see with using CP now for that, like allegiance ability, is that now you're using up the CP that you're saving for a big wah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't win with Big Wah now.
Yeah, but now they'll win even less if they can't kill anything.
No, because so this is the issue with the Big Wah. If your entire army is fighting an opponent and you're plus 10 attack on your whole army, you're going to overkill everything that you're touching. So you're not going to be touching. Like, if your opponent knows what he's doing, he's going to screen you. You're going to be killing one unit of rats, or you're going to be killing one unit, or you're going to... So I felt like that Big Wah was just... A lot of people just were like, I want to just buff it. Like, maybe this is just the people that I've played. I've only played against it 4 times in this edition. But they always do that, right? They come in, they're like, I'm going to hit you, and I'm going to buff all my attacks. You're like, okay, great. You killed the front line of my army.
And
There's
then
nothing else for them to do, though.
don't play it anymore.
Yeah, but I think the movement is way more valuable.
Yeah.
Just getting in there with them is way more valuable. Getting around the flanks. Now you can be like, okay, this unit of piggies is going around your flank.
Because it's actually a pretty slow army. Even the pigs, they go 9 inches. It's not that fast, right? So if you can guarantee the destruction move on them, that you can do some stuff with that. I still don't think they're going to be top tier, but they're definitely better now than they were yesterday.
You give your Cabbage Patch the always strike first. Was it Quicksilver Potion?
Yeah.
That's the one that's always strike first, right?
No, that's not. No, that wouldn't work for destruction though. So.
Oh, it doesn't work for. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It doesn't work for destruction.
What you would do with what you can do is give him the doppelganger cloak, and that way you guarantee that he's going to go before someone else.
Oh, sorry. That's what I was thinking of. Give him the doppelganger, bump him up a flank, and he just goes. He can get right around, move twice.
And in fact, with the destructive bulk, you can also play tricks, and if there's a low wound hero somewhere, you just kill him with the destructive bulk, then you get to charge again into something else. If you can swing him around the board that much more easily, then yeah, he becomes a fun piece until he runs into warp lightning cannons and dies.
Yeah. But now you're talking. What's the range on a warp lightning cannon?
At 24.
Yeah. So now it's conceivable that he can be out of 24 and then he can hit your warp lightning cannon.
Yes.
Unless, like, obviously you're going to screen it, so you got to use your units to get rid of the screens, then put them in. But now you have that option, whereas before you're like, you would position, do I roll it? No, that shit doesn't move. Like, I played a guy, none of his stuff moved.
Yeah.
Like, for free.
The thing that really screws up the Maw Crusher is the size of the freaking base.
Well, it's the same size as most stuff now, the right 100 mil circle.
It limits what you can do with him movement-wise. It really does. With a 3-inch no-go zone, and even if he flies, he can't fit over most units with a normal move because it's so freaking big. It's just, yeah.
But now you're going to be right 3 inches away from him and then moving over the unit, right? Instead of, yeah, I don't know. I think the movement is where it's at with that army, and anything that adds movement to them is a huge big deal.
Yeah.
All right, Francois. Why don't we hook up a game with the new Iron
Well,
Giant?
you gotta wait till it really comes out because you gotta analyze it and think about the list.
Yeah.
But even a small unit of like three piggies going around your flank, coming in the rear, like they will mince up a lot of backfield units really quickly. But the problem is right now is they can't get around your center or your front line because they're too slow.
Yeah.
So now you can swing them way because they just have to be in range of a character, right?
Yes, in range of a character.
So and you could, no, you couldn't. I was gonna say you could like, you probably couldn't teleport them, and well, you could teleport a Cabbage Patch dragon, the Cabbage Patch guy, and then he could make himself move.
Or what you do is you teleport the pigs or the hardboarders or whatever. Then you move the destruction move the character, and then if it's your general, it might be in range of those hardboarders to get them to move now, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, because then you're 9 away, and then you move them, and now you're whatever you happen to get, but
Yeah.
it's a short charge now,
And
right?
you'd be allowed to charge in the hero phase with that. And then hardboys get a +3 native. Let's say you have cogs on there, it becomes a 4-inch charge.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, it's exciting. So yeah, no, I think what that army lacked was movement shenanigans, not killing power.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, yeah. So I they might be an upper middle tier army now.
Well, I'm going to be trying them. Iron Jaws are my best painted army. I spent a lot of time in this army, and they were just so underwhelming to play that I've barely played them ever. So I'm looking forward to getting an excuse to test them out now.
No, it's exciting. No, I definitely get it, and I'm thinking the same thing about Stormcast now. I'm like, maybe I should go back and build some kind of shooting Death Star.
You should. Didn't you buy like 4 ballistas or something?
Yeah, they're super underwhelming because they suck at long range, and you have to drop them in. I don't know. They're underwhelming for right now, but we'll see. Maybe not. Like with the Hurricanum. So my list was 20-man Judicators, 2 units of 5 Liberators. I took the Hurricanum with the Wizard because that was the only option. I took the dude that gave +1 to the catapults to shoot. What's his name? I'm really bad at Stormcast names. I go by their picture on the app and I just throw it in. And that's basically my list. And it was the Judicators were supposed to kind of be my front line, but also just kind of peppering you. And I got them down to a 3+ save, easy peasy, rerolling ones. And they would just shoot. Now they'll be rerolling ones to hit, so that's going to be disgusting. And then, they don't do mortal wounds, so it's not that disgusting. But it's good enough for battle line troops, I guess, anyway. But yeah, you deep strike them in. So, but I don't think the extra 40 points on the ballistas, I don't know if that changes. I'd have to really sit down and look.
Yeah, you don't have to run 4 though.
See, that's the one thing is like if you're gonna take the 300 point. So if you think about it, I lose the 80 points on the Hurricanum. I add 40 points on the ballistas. I'm still down 40 points, which is nice enough for now. Maybe it means I get a better character in.
Yeah.
But I have to really look through it because one of my biggest complaints, kind of, what AOS is, depending on the book. So when a book comes out, kind of one of their faction traits or their sub legions or whatever, you're like, oh, I want to play this, like, not culture, but you know what I'm trying to get at, this type of army, and it goes really well with this one battalion. Well, that's 80% of my points, so you don't really have as much variety in this game as maybe 40k, but we'll see. Basically, I'm trying to say, I don't know, man. I still think it's a terrible list. I would love to have a shooting list, though, that just, like, you don't have to actually play games. You just drop it all and shoot.
Well, I mean, you could do something fun with Poison Wind Globaliers and Warp Lightning Cannons and Jizai and...
Oh, but I'm not buying any rats. That's not happening. So you can say that. That's not happening. I'll play Space
Feel the love
Marines.
of the Orange Rat.
Yeah. Well, it's hard, too, because you got these big painted armies, so you want to kind of, like... I want to, like, use at least 50% of my painted models. Like, let's say you have like a 3,000 points of Stormcast. Well, if I'm going to build a new list that's competitive right now, it'd be really nice if like 50% of that army could be already painted. But it for the longest time it wasn't like that for Stormcast. So, anyway, Darren, anything to add?
Nope. I think I'm excited to actually get the book itself and just look through some of these changes. But Yeah, I think
Well, I need it in
overall,
Azure. Like until the points changes are in Azure, that's how you say it, right?
Azir?
Azure, I don't
Azure,
know. Yeah.
whatever. I can't say shit. But until the point changes are in there, I really won't know the full impact on my lists
Yeah.
because I can't. I'm too lazy to build lists by hand. So you're like, once all the points come in next weekend, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah,
Yeah. I think overall is a fairly moderated change, which that's what
They're
they've
very
been doing.
yeah, which is good. It's good that they're doing it in small increments and not overreacting. I like that.
But that's what happens in Sigmar because everything goes in chunks in Sigmar, right? There's no 1 or 2 points or 7 points or 9 points. Everything goes in chunks. So you have to kind of chunk it up and down 10, 20, right? So it's always better to do it slowly than too crazy. But
yeah. Because in the past they have over nerfed things that were good to the point where they're unplayable, and it's super frustrating for a lot of people. I'm over it. Like I don't. It doesn't frustrate me as much because I'm usually like, yeah, I shouldn't have taken that in the first place. But
You,
I know that a
you
lot of people like they build their Skyfires, they get them all painted up, and then they get nerfed, and they're like, oh my god,
oh,
why didn't
those
I keep those
are
bits to swap
so
the
annoying.
arms?
So
Sorry.
annoying. They're so annoying to paint too. It's like I spent all this time.
Oh yeah, and there are a million pieces to build. Oh, brutal, brutal models. I got like 80 of them, by the way.
yep, we all know about that one.
Actually, I sold a bunch, so I'm good.
So we got a question on the floor about 40K. Are we finished talking GHB?
Yeah, we can go to open questions, whatever. Yeah,
All right.
I'm done. Like it'll come out. It's just speculation, but I'm super psyched for it. I think it's needed. The game is stale right now. Like you go and look. Like we went to that team tournament. All the lists were samey.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious what's good by now. So it's good that there's a wrench thrown in. Stuff will change.
I'm really excited about new missions because it's getting kind
And we
of
forgot to
terrible
mention the
missions.
dispossessed. We kind of talked about it. The warriors went up and all the other units went down, but I don't think a points decrease on most of the army is enough to make it that much better. It's still just a slow, foot slogging army. They need more abilities and items and units. It's like there's 5 war scrolls in that whole faction.
Yep.
So 4, 5. What? Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Darren.
All right. So Icy Red Bull has a question. Of course, they just announced it was today or yesterday the new Apocalypse. Have you had a chance to look at that, guys? What do you think of the new Apocalypse? So they
I'm not gonna play.
say,
Yeah, I'm not gonna play it either.
well, they say now that an Apocalypse game will be played in 2-3 hours.
They said that last time.
This is where the movement tray thing comes in. They're going to sell movement trays for 24, 25, and 32 millimeter bases and stuff. It's going to be, sounds like it's going to be a very card based D12 dices.
Yeah, there's tons of cards, and the unit profiles are per unit, not per dude. So you're going to be throwing not as much dice as if it was a giant game of 40K. But
And they're
I'm
bringing out
not.
these Apocalypse box sets for
Oh yeah,
most
I saw those.
factions.
Yeah. They're going to be Canadian $200, so it's a decent discount on what's in the box.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I was gonna
Some
say
of them
like
some of them are terrible. Like the Eldar one is awful. There's not a single. Who needs 10 more Wraith Guard, like, or 15 more Wraith Guard?
I know I have it on good authority that Wraith Blades are the shit right now.
Yeah, but anyone who owns Eldar like I do, they were in the Wake the Dead box. They were in the Start Collecting for a long time. Like everyone has a ton of these models.
Yeah, I have at least 15.
Yes.
yeah, so the Orc box, as Icy Red Bull mentioned, is
Killican.
10 kilocans. No, 9
Yeah.
kilocans.
And 2 Death Dreads, I think.
Two Def Dreads and like 7 kilocans or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, something like that.
Basically, Nick Blackburn's army.
So the thing about the Killicans is they're actually not bad. It's their leadership.
Yeah, they run away.
They run away.
I mean, it's Grot's in there, right? It's Gretchen's in there. That's the explanation, but still, it's silly.
Yeah, it's they're pretty funny. You could MSU it maybe, and then it'd be a bit better, but
So,
because there's no rule of 3 in Apocalypse. I used to play Apocalypse all the time, and it's fun. And I'm sure I know there's a group in where I live that just does Apocalypse every weekend in their basement. I'm sure this is going to sell like crazy, and there's a market for that. There's a market for the guys that own 20,000 points of Space Marines but don't want to play with 200 models. So it's definitely cool.
Yeah,
It's just not for me. It's not a product targeted for me. I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to buy it.
the AdMech box is 6 robots and 4 HQs. That's pretty decent.
That's actually you could buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, is it discounted heavily?
Well,
Yeah.
it probably is. Yeah.
What I heard is 200 Canadian for the box. So if you add everything up in there, it's a pretty good discount.
Like what, 300 Canadian regular?
Because
Yeah, something like-
robots are like 60 bucks for 2 or something like that.
It might even be 70 for 2. It's pretty expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
The base box is 3 units of Primaris, the Primaris Dreadnought, and a Captain. So that would be, that's almost 300 bucks worth of stuff in there for 200. Yeah, thereabouts.
Who needs more Primaris Marines?
It's true.
Yeah.
I have enough to last me a lifetime.
If you're
So
starting, say somehow you'd never bought a starting set anywhere, and you want to start a Space Marine army, it's a good start.
That would be true.
Re-releasing the Baneblade box,
Good.
the new repulsor with all the guns, more
Yeah,
guns
that'll
than
be
the
cool.
previous one, and that crazy skimmer float tank AdMech tank thing.
The D-Day
Oh, I
landing box.
love that. I love that tank. That is a really nice model. It's really cool. And it makes sense. Like the AdMech guys, they'd have an open top. They don't care. Like, they're just robots. Actually, that robot set's kind of interesting because you're seeing a lot more AdMech robot armies these days for some reason. They're
That's
getting
good.
really popular. So that box is going to sell like crazy.
Yeah.
So what
The
I want to
Necron-
know, what I want to know is though, so they've got Apocalypse, and
Yeah.
then they're selling these boxes that are Apocalypse boxes, which are really only like 200 points, 300 points in a box. Maybe some of them are more, some of them are less. But you generally, when you're playing Apocalypse, you're playing thousands and thousands of points, right? And Titans and shit. So have they changed Apocalypse that it's like, how does that? Do you have to buy 10 of these boxes to make an Apocalypse army then, or like, what's the deal? I don't really get it.
So Apocalypse is just for people that want to play their whole collection.
Yeah. It's
So if you look behind me, one of those cabinets is literally full of Astra Militarum, and one of them is literally full of Eldar. So it's like, I want to take all my Eldar shit. I don't want to worry about detachments. I don't want to worry about any of that stuff, but I don't want to roll. If I have 3 units of Shining Spears, I don't want to roll that many dice. So they're adding in mechanics. The old edition, they did it with like super jumbo templates that would just remove like 3 units at once. You'd be like, here's a template. I roll a 6. Everything under it's gone. And this template is the size of a pizza box.
But
It's
that's
like a
my
deep
point.
dish.
So, like, are they gonna have to buy like 10 of these boxes then for an Apocalypse
Well,
army?
yes, but it's not speaking to that. It's not speaking to like a new guy off the street playing a pot. It's
Yeah.
for like, you have an AdMech army. It's like 2,000, 3,000 points. You might buy that box, and then you'll buy like a Titan to go with it. Now you have an Apocalypse army.
Mhm.
That's not the target market. The market is, I know guys, and you go into their basement and you're like, the guy has 20,000 points of cast Space Marines, and you're like, why didn't you stop after 2K?
Don't ask
no,
me that
there's
question.
people-
Yeah.
So there's so when you go into your basement, Darren, you look, you have 8 armies that are around 2 to 2,500K, right? For the most part.
Except for Dark Angels and Custodes now.
But even then, it's like 2 different lists. And when you go into mine, for the most part, I'm similar as well because we're tournament players generally. But a lot of people only play one army.
Mhm.
Like there's guys that I'm sure are listening right now. They're like, yeah, I only play Ultramarines. I have like 200,000 points of Ultramarines. And you're like, why? Because I want to do all 3 companies. Or sorry, all 10 companies. And you're like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seems weird that these are more like start collecting boxes, really, kind of. Maybe a bit.
Well,
slightly
nobody
bigger.
wants more than that
Well,
anyway.
But that's something they've been doing for a long time. It's the same as the Christmas Battle Force boxes, right? It's a way for GW to offer us a sale without ever doing a sale, right? Because their
Yeah.
policy is not on their stuff, but they box it together, they give us a discount on the total, and they sell more plastic this way.
It also makes it easier for like relatives to buy, right? Oh, I know that you play orcs. I want one big box for him. I spend $200 on my kid for his birthday. Oh, there's a two. Like I think that's a
I,
common number. You
I,
know, a
I
couple video
totally get I
games.
totally get that aspect of it. I just don't know why it falls under Apocalypse. But anyway,
Well, they
It,
have to, right? Because they're a model company, so they can't release a supplement with no models. So this is a way of like you come in, you're like, oh, I want to play Apocalypse. I play AdMech. I'll grab this Apocalypse box with my book.
so I
because
That's
when
how
think
you
I see it. Like
every
you
single
need.
rule set that Games Workshop comes up with, even the base 40K one, it's a marketing tool to sell miniatures. So that's what this is.
so. Icy Redbow asked this question. He states so it's like almost for the beginner, like him, and then he states, so it's marketed to beginners as an all-in-one box, but really it's for the opposite. What do you think of that
Well, that's
statement?
my opinion. That's my opinion. Um, but I don't think Apocalypse is aimed at beginners.
I don't think the
I think
game
Kill
is
Team
aimed at
is.
beginners, but you could use these boxes to start collecting.
Well, some
Yeah.
of them, but from the sounds of
Some
things,
of them,
there's like one of them that's an effective army, and it's not even a top tier army.
yeah,
But beginners don't care about that, obviously.
yeah. Like the Marine
But six
box,
robots, like that's just like people have that in their list, so that's fine,
yeah.
right?
The Marine
But
box seems
nobody
cool.
has like 10 kilocans.
Yeah, the guard one has like a couple of tank commanders and like a chimera and some guardsmen. Like that's probably cool. Like some of these could
Oh,
definitely
that's solid,
be
yeah.
like start
Yeah, the
collecting
guard box is
boxes.
great. Yeah,
Like, oh, two tank commanders, great. I'll take two of those
the
boxes, please.
heavy weapon team, a command squad, a chimera, and 2 Russes, I think, or maybe even 3 Russes. It's a good box. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so,
So
but yeah,
okay.
that could be aimed at a beginner who wants to play 40K with it.
Yeah.
I just don't think. Well, if you're a beginner playing Apocalypse, you're not playing your side. You're playing like 1,000 points or 2,000 points with three other people playing against three or four other people.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, no, I think these are just slightly larger start collecting boxes.
And you can get a lot of these boxes for 10 to 15% off from like local retailers. So
Yep.
if it's already marked down 30% and you go into your store and you get them down another 10%, that's a big savings on an army.
Yep.
And that guard one there, yeah, you buy one of those, you're set.
Yep.
Yeah, then you
And
buy Canadians and you're done. Yeah.
Like
Red
three tank commanders is very hot right now.
yeah, Red
Maybe
Dragon.
weapons teams.
Red Dragon will be offering CanHammer patrons an extra special discount, and it will include all these things. So keep that in mind. But yeah, it
And it
does.
supports us when you use it. Yeah.
Yep, it definitely reduces the cost of entry. Like you start off with like 3 Russes and like a bunch of guardsmen and a chimera. That's like, 700-800 points straight up one box, right? So it's like it's a good nice way to get started. And Chris is right. You don't have to play a whole army of Apocalypse just by yourself, like me and Chris would do. You play with 3 or 4 other people and have a great time playing different your little 2,000 point armies, right? So that's definitely a good point.
Yeah, but if you're playing 3-on-3, 1,000 points each or 2,000 points each, you have enough time to roll your dice. So I don't know. I was just never. I'm not the target audience, so I can't really speak to who would do it or why. If you want to play it, and if you like it, you like it. And look at the box and figure out what the best savings are. I know with the start collecting boxes, you can go through, and some of them are better deals than other ones, obviously. So
Yeah, for sure.
you have to do that math.
Yeah, just add it up. Cool.
Any other questions?
No other questions. No. We answered all of them.
Great. So with that, have a good evening, guys, and we'll catch you on the battlefield.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.